Hades 2 just launched into early access, and I am itching to play it. Although, before I start going today, I thought it would be interesting to talk about what if Overwatch had a roguelike game mode? This is going to be just kind of some unfiltered thoughts. I have a list of things that I want to talk about, some ideas, some ways that can make it cool, how it could viably work with Overwatch, but kind of like my fighting game video that I did earlier. It's just spitballing ideas. Obviously, it's not actually happening. I would love for it to happen. More roguelike game modes and everything, please. God of War, Last of Us, whatever it may be. Even if it feels like it shouldn't work, somebody can make it work. So that's what I've got. I think some of these things are actually much more viable. Like, I feel like there's a lot to work with that may not appear so on the surface with Overwatch, and I think that's really cool. I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to play you some Hades 2 footage in the background because, why not? Everybody likes Hades. This is a true fact. So, anyways, yeah, let's go ahead and let's get right into this. So, I think the biggest thing that an Overwatch rogue or a roguelike mode would be is that, I guess the way to build it is using or reusing all of these assets from the PvE, either the ones that are completed, the ones that are in the game playable right now, so those 3 missions, or any of the stuff that wasn't completed, because there's plenty of stuff that we've seen, and I'm sure much more that we haven't seen, that was never completed and probably won't ever see the light of day. But that could very easily be reworked into PvE rooms, PvE enemies, assets in general, bosses, anything like that. I mean, there's so much to work with there, even with the little amount of stuff that they've given us already. They can use characters as bosses or as things. They can use the maps that are already in the game as what's it called, as rooms. Even like PvP maps, or even like some of the other ones like the 3v3 maps or deathmatch maps. It can come in all shapes and sizes, all different kind of objectives. I actually remember at one of the BlizzCons, they were talking about all of these different like objective types that they had for PvE, and reusing those for a roguelike game mode for like, this is the clear condition of a room. I feel like that's a perfect fit. Totally doable, I think, with a lot of the assets that they had. I think also like the big thing that you would want to have out of an Overwatch roguelike is being able to play on a team, right? You want to be able to play with your friends. I mean, it's Overwatch, right? I think you would want to be able to play either solo or with a team, although it may end up being more fun with a team. It's kind of like Risk of Rain. I think you can play with multiple people in Risk of Rain. So I feel like that's like the core. Like, you want to be able to allow friends to play this together, all queue up for a roguelike adventure in client. And so like I've played a lot of Hades. It's the roguelike I've played the most ever. So a lot of the inspiration is going to come from Hades. As you can tell, I'm very excited for Hades 2. So if a lot of these ideas feel like it's like, oh, that's just Hades, well, that's kind of why. I have dabbled in other roguelikes before, but I do think that the general structure of Hades, I feel like, would work pretty decently for Overwatch. So going on with that, like power-ups, like right here you're seeing a boon from Hades. Overwatch could definitely have power-ups, and these could be like easy things, like just increasing damage or health and like choosing which ones you want. They could be like some universal things, like maybe you jump higher, maybe you move faster. Any character could benefit from that if they chose it. Or it could be some, repurposed PvE and like defunct game mode abilities. And what do I mean by that? Well, they showed us those big skill trees at BlizzCon before. I'm sure they were working on a lot of those for certain characters. Why not reuse some of those as special things that you could power up during the middle of a run? Or, some of the other game modes, think like April Fool's patches, Mirror Watch, stuff like that. I'm sure there's other examples that I'm blanking on right now, but you could use those abilities as well. Like, those could also, do some of the fun stuff, some of the weird stuff. Basically, all of that could be used to augment your runs. And basically, I think it would be really good for Overwatch to, use that PvE aspect and go down like the roguelike build path. Like you're really thinking about how your build works with each other, So like even like card builders, that's like how does your build work? Hades, for example, it's another like how does my build synergize with each other? And the cool thing with Overwatch is that when you have heroes that you maybe pick, maybe don't pick, maybe they're random. I don't think people would like it so much if it was random. But if you have like a team of heroes, now you're thinking about like how does my pick synergize with my friend, and I feel like that's a core aspect of Overwatch that's really really cool, and I think that could work really well in the roguelike genre. So I do think that focusing on builds and focusing on trying to optimize your build is probably the best way to go if Overwatch were to make a roguelike. Um, oh, I also had the idea, and this may limit the amount of characters you could pick, just how like the engine works. But you could do like kind of like a build your own character route. So like you start with Tracer, but then you replace Blink with Shadow Step or something, and that's a terrible example because it'd be awful. But you could augment it certain ways more than that. Basically, every time you play the game mode, you end up like just stitching together a character with the abilities in the game. I feel like that could also be a cool, unique angle that they could take. Although I feel like that is much more technically hard and probably limiting, and maybe even the servers couldn't handle that capacity if it's between 4 or 5 other players in the lobby. But that's just like more one of the things you could do if you played solo. Perhaps maybe that's one of those things that it's like if you play solo, you can have this weird like I have a bunch of different abilities from different characters, and that might not break the game so much. I kind of already talked about it earlier, but each map could have like different room layouts. So every time you go to a map, it's not like, oh, we have the same objective and the same enemies. It can have just like a bunch of different like variations so that you don't quite know what's going on. Maybe you start at the end of Paraiso and you have to work your way forward. Maybe you are dropped in the middle of Kanazaka and you're limited to a certain area and you have to survive or something. And then at another time, on Kanazaka, you're just trying to get somewhere as fast as possible, and there's a bunch of stuff in your way. Stuff like that, right? Like different variations so that you get some excitement, you get to see a bunch of maps, but you also don't have to play them in the same way every time you get them. Again, I think that'd be really cool. Kind of again like Hades, but I don't think it should necessarily have like a level system like Hades. You're in Tartarus, and then you go to Asphodel, and you go to Elysium. And then you go to the surface. I don't think it needs to be like that. I think it can just be like anything random. If you've played the God of War Ragnarok roguelike mode, you kind of just get to pick wherever you go, and I feel like you could do that in Overwatch 2, where you just pick your destination. Like, some characters, even in PvE, probably aren't very good on Dorado, right? Like, if you had to play Reinhardt on like your attacker side Dorado, probably not great. So instead, I think you could probably just have him like choose, like you don't have to choose Dorado here, you get like a choice or two of where you want to go, and what things might be waiting for you at the end can differ and everything, right? Like probably between every map or mode you get to go into like a little menu and choose your power-ups or stuff like that. I think just the way it would work if you had multiple people and you have to like keep the game going for everyone, probably like just a menu with a buy shop and like a timer is probably the best course of action, just to simplify any kind of decisions that you have to make. So I think that it could be a fun way to mix things up. I also just have like a couple random bullet points probably sporadically in here. I think it would be fun if players could. Oh yeah. So I was thinking about like how do you potentially get PvP in here as well, because the game isn't just it isn't just PvE. I mean, Overwatch is player versus player. So I thought it'd be cool if like what if players or teams could kind of like invade like a Souls game, and then either replace the objective of one map and be like, okay, now you're fighting a squad of people and you have to take a team fight with all your wacky abilities, or they like take control of a boss or something. So like, oh, you're going to this next room, you've got like raid boss Reaper, and actually it's going to be controlled by a real person. That could be really cool. Something to experiment there. I don't know if the other person would just randomly like, okay, this is what you're doing when you load into someone's random run. Or if they would like have a build and then try to like, like have a PvP build. That might end up being really annoying, but I do think it's cool. I think it's like an interesting idea. Like, how do you work PvP into this like inherently PvE kind of game mode? Probably something that would be scrapped and like tried and then feel like it probably wouldn't work at the end of the day. But I thought it'd be cool to just like talk about and see how it could work. I was also just thinking like if you were playing solo, you would probably need some extra stuff like a self-revive mechanic or self-heal or something. Since the game isn't really designed around one person, maybe just at the end of a round you buy health. That's like part of the thing you could do. I could definitely see that being an option. Also, earlier I talked about the build your own hero. I think that could also be, that could just supplement your power enough, and then maybe you just like, oh, I need to give myself a good spread of a passive that heals me or something like that. And they could also add in like completely unique abilities, although that's kind of some work. So who knows? Also, like maybe there could be like items that you hold on to or like pickups. Think like I'm holding on to a jump pad or a health pack, or even like other stage hazards. Like I have a car that I'm gonna throw, or even just like throwables, deployables like Torb turret, Symmetra turret, teleporter, stuff like that, right? You could just be like, oh, I'm gonna throw this down. This was like an item that I had. It was like other characters' abilities. I think that could also be really sick and continue to just make every run more unique and everything. I hadn't really thought about a way to like, if it were one of those games where it's you get stronger every run you do, or maybe it's just like completely random. I think it could work either way. I think getting stronger every time would be a little much. I think just for a simple roguelike mode in the Overwatch client, just complete refresh every time, probably the easiest way. Easiest way to do it, simplest way. But yeah, honestly, that's kind of my preliminary thoughts. This is something that I would absolutely love to hear you guys talk about. Just give me a comment or something down below, because I'm sure a lot of you have plenty of ideas. I'm sure you've played more roguelike games than I have. So you may know of systems in other games that are much better or more conducive to Overwatch. So again, please, if you have an idea, I would love to hear it. But that's kind of going to be it for the rest of this video. If you like this, please do any of that good YouTube stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. It does really help me out at the end of the day. If you want to get in on the conversation live, this was streamed at twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway. Every time I go live, I do a discussion. For a while now, I'll probably be playing Hades 2 every time I go live. So if you like Hades 2, then you could also come watch me play that. But if not, the rest of my socials are in the description. I hope you had a good day. Thank you for watching.